Welcome. Today I'm joined by Jason Kurtz of StrataWest, and we're going to talk about what it takes to build a winning team in the field of property management, specifically stratas, because that's what we talk about here. Jason, thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me. Really nice to see you and have the opportunity to chat with you about this.
It's an important subject, and I know one that's been near and dear to your heart. You've been running StrataWest with Corey for over a dozen years now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're coming up on, well, we're in our 15th year as local owner operators of our little boutique size management firm here in the Lower Mainland. And yeah, it's been a real journey.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive in. In your view, is there a strata manager crisis?
Very much so. I've been interviewed in some mainstream media about this, going back now for almost 10 years. The writing has been on the wall about the looming crisis of labor in our industry, and I know that in the economy at large there are really broad concerns about the lack of skilled labor, and I think that the strata management world is a particularly acute example of that. There is a licensing requirement in our industry, which makes it really easy to track the availability of labor. Um, and to put it into perspective, over the last 10 plus years, really, the number of licensees in our industry has largely remained static. Hasn't changed very much, the number of people who actually practice what we do for a living. And in the meanwhile, all anyone really has to do is take a look around town and see the number of cranes to see that hundreds of thousands of strata lots have been opened in the last 10 years, and the availability of labor has remained largely the same. That's a very easy to picture math equation that just doesn't work in the long run. It's a sustainability crisis in our industry, and we've seen that over time, less and less property managers are available for the available stock of housing that requires professional management.
You're absolutely right. The stats that I'd seen said that there were roughly 1,500 employed or licensed strata managers, and that maybe half of them were quite active. And that's for a total of over 30,000 stratas in the province, 13, 14,000 of which are more sizable, more than 5 units. So,
Yeah. To
you
put
can,
that into to put that into perspective, that number of licensees, I've been doing this job for 20 years, and it's basically the same as it's been that entire time. We are our license is there's a specific strata management license that's offered through our regulators, but we're bundled in with both rental property managers and realtors under the licensing regime, and uh, I don't mind saying that many people get their strata management license for practical reasons, so that they can hang it elsewhere, as they do as they do rental and or trading services without actually acting in the strata world. And so we know, both through anecdotally and through our own observations, that the number of strata licensees, yeah, hasn't really changed very much at all. And all we've seen are thousands and thousands more housing starts in the meantime.
it's true. Now, we listed a few reasons of this evolving crisis. As you say, you've been talking about it for a decade. An aging workforce is part of it. Nearly half of licensed strata managers are within 5 years of retirement age, according to some news I saw this year. That's a shocking statistic. Clearly, there's an opportunity that exists here for the next generation if they're willing to embrace this as a profession. And before we get into too much of that, maybe you can tell me about some of the ins and outs of what you see in terms of turnover in the industry.
Yeah, there's an old rule of thumb, so to speak, in our world, that if you make it through your first 2 years, that you're good for an entire career. But the first 2 years can be really challenging in our industry. I love my job and I love our industry, and I'm a big advocate for it. And I think you're right to say that there's a lot of opportunity here. I remember my interview for a strata management position 20 years ago, and hearing a lot of the really positive benefits. So I don't want to always focus focus on the negatives, because there are lots of really great things about our industry, but it does need an injection of youth into it. It needs an invigoration of labor, and it also needs some other things that I think we'll have an opportunity to talk about today, like leveraging technology to change the way that the job is done. But no way around it. The number of retirements, and I'll drill down on that point as well for a moment to point out that the people who are retiring are, of course, the most experienced and wise in our industry. They're the ones who carry the bulk of the large portfolios of really complicated buildings, airspace parcels and sections, and really complicated cost sharing agreements. So it's not just the raw numbers that we're losing right now. It's also the benefit of their wisdom and their experience, and that's a real hole in our industry.
That's a really great point. It's a really great point. And whether you're losing them due to retirement or due to turnover, now it's nice to know that now if you've got 2 years, you're made of the right stuff. But that does have an impact on communities.
Absolutely. There's a lot of knowledge that lives in the head of an individual property manager. It is still a very personal job. We establish relationships with strata councils, with ownership groups, with vendors, with the staff at properties, you name it. And so to have turnover, it's quite disruptive to the operations of strata corporations. Often the property manager is the linchpin, the one that connects all those disparate groups, and losing the property manager can have an outsized impact on a strata corporation's operations.
Fantastic. Well, with that as a backdrop, let's get into some of your talking points and what you've done at StrataWest to build a winning team.
Well, yeah, we really do pride ourselves on being what we are, which is locally owned and operated, very responsive to our clients' and customers' needs, very forward thinking when it comes to the implementation of technology and systems. But first and foremost, we're a people company, and we've always treated ourselves that way. We treat our staff members as though they are members of our family. The ownership group of StrataWest, there's three of us, and we're all local owner operators who are family people ourselves, and want to ensure that our staff maintain a great work-life balance. I think we take the long view of sustainability when it comes to a working position, and so we try our very best to make the company a great place to work. There are a bunch of ways that we do that. We pay better than I think is normal in the industry. We allow more time off. We have more training opportunities. We provide greater support, whether it's administrative or just personally. Again, being a locally owned and operated company, we really care about the people behind our operations, not just the systems. And we work really hard to understand that this is a really complicated and challenging role, and in order to succeed in it, it's not a single person operation. So we tend to hire the best and the brightest property managers, people who've got a great deal of experience, who come to us already having seen many of the most challenging types of situations that you can see in strata corporations. But once we've got those people, we hold on to them by providing a workplace that is filled with support, ongoing education, access to resources, access to a great team of senior leaders, mentors who can help each other out, as well as like working really hard to make sure that our clients understand that we are a people first company, and that when push comes to shove, that we are going to work and stand behind our people. And that's something that I think is increasingly rare in the business world in general, not just strata management, but it's something that I think we all need to do more of to stand by our people. And I know that ours feel very supported when they're dealing with challenging spots.
Jason, some of those watching might be considering strata management as a career. What is an industry standard for someone who's in their early years in this industry?
Your industry standard is to get a lot of work put in front of you very quickly, thrown to the fire, so to speak, is sort of the language that often gets used in the industry. But it's great for self-started, motivated individuals who have high aspirations and who want to run their own business. It's a great training ground for running a business in our industry, for better or for worse. Here in BC, we work off of a portfolio model of management. So a property manager will manage a portfolio portfolio of buildings. To put that into perspective, anywhere from 8 to 15 buildings to start with. You're never working with just a single property. And that can be a real challenge to get to know 8 different ownership groups. Let's take the conservative example. 8 different budgets, 8 different sets of councils, personality, 8 different sets of vendor groups. It plays into why it can be so challenging for the first couple of years, because there's just so much that gets thrown at you all at once. And I think the industry is starting to wake up to the idea that there needs to be more in the way of training for new property managers. I remember my first day on the job, I was given a portfolio of 9, 10 buildings, but this was before email. We didn't have email back then. You could get thrown to the fire, so to speak. Now, if you've got 10 buildings, if you go away for a weekend, you're likely to come back to 100, 150, maybe 200 emails. So it can be quite daunting at the start, but also encouraging for people who do want the excitement of a fast-paced position that requires them to continually learn on the job, develop their own systems for triaging, for prioritizing, and really, like, one of the best benefits, and something that I love telling prospective property managers, is that we touch every different discipline that you can imagine: legal, engineering, architecture, building science, human resources, you name it. We get to do a little bit of everything. And, as somebody who grew up in a family that wanted me to become a lawyer when I became an adult, I take I love being able to share with my family, who, for a little while, were a little bit disappointed that I didn't become a lawyer, that I get to practice law all the time. And on top of that, I get to practice a little bit of building science and architecture and mechanical engineering, and so on and so forth. That I and everyone in our industry, you learn so much, and it can be really rewarding in that sense.
Fantastic. So what you've said so far, StrataWest is people first.
Very much so. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm glad we've got a slide to back that up.
What kind of abuse does a manager see, and where do you guys draw the line, and how does StrataWest support its team in that way?
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound as though this is an all the time sort of problem, but it is a significant issue that we face. And let's back up for context. What is it that we do? We manage communities filled with people's homes. Um, when you're dealing with people's homes, you should rightfully expect that emotions are going to be quite high. People's homes are typically not just the place where they live, but also their most significant of investments. And so let's start there and try and remember that, like, you're touching people often at the worst time in their lives. They've just experienced a fire or a flood or some sort of calamity that requires them to be out of their home for a lengthy period of time. In those situations, we're the messenger, and guess what? In society, messengers often sort of get shot a little bit. So we do deal with some unfortunate circumstances that are outside of anybody's control, and in those situations, we just try to practice the same sort of soft touch that we would expect to receive ourselves: to be kind, to be polite, to be patient, to understand that you're dealing with somebody who's on their worst day, and that when you help them, that problem is going to get better. That's not abuse. Abuse, though, can arise when you've got somebody who's calling repeatedly about the same thing that we have no control over, whether it's the Strata Corporation or us as agents for the Strata Corporation. When that individual chooses to use language that is just unacceptable in a workplace, and we have our own standards that we have to abide by. WorkSafe BC sets the bare minimum standards, but of course, as a company that prides itself on being people first, we have much higher standards than what the law requires of us as employers. And so, yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we do have to draw lines with clients and explain to them, whether it's an owner within the property, or even sometimes our clients directly, the Strata Council members, using rude, abrasive language, pointing fingers repeatedly, and maybe just not, following the professional advice that they're paying for. And so
Yeah.
we're very quick to remind our clients, like, why they've engaged us in the first place, give them strong advice, do our best to try and steer them in the right direction. That's 99% of the time. Every once in a while, we encounter intractable situations where homeowners or occasionally council members will be so rude and on a repeated, consistent, and sustained basis that we have no choice but to say goodbye to the client. Our regulators remind us over and over again that we have really one choice when we're experiencing this kind of behavior, which is to end our agreement. And our staff need that. Our industry needs that.
Yeah.
It needs to be a generally understood principle in all of society, not just strata management, that shooting the messenger is not an acceptable bit of behavior, that everybody needs to lead with kindness, politeness, especially in the workplace.
Really good points. Really good points. And I mean, I think it's already been made clear by what you've said that you do focus on your people and you focus on those relationships. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's mentioned here, we are we're a relatively small company. We thrive on our reputation, and our reputation really does require us to make sure that our staff are well treated and taken care of because they are our entire reputation. We don't sell widgets and we don't sell gears and motors and whatnot. We sell customer service and a team of people who really know what they're doing. And so we've never focused on volume. We're not a huge corporation. That's just never been our modus operandi. We really prefer long-term stable relationships with quality customers. And so yeah, every once in a while we have to go back to clients and reset expectations here and there when the long-term nature of that is threatened by disruptive behavior. But we'll always engage with our clients well before we have to say goodbye to them and help them understand what the concerns are. And most of our clients really appreciate that. They understand that. They like their property manager. They don't want to lose their property manager to an abusive jerk, living in suite 201.
the realities of communal living.
Hmm.
Um, you you also touched on compensation earlier and how you guys are very competitive. How do you help manage these workloads, and what is it that creates the right balance for StrataWest and its managers?
Yeah, this is like the secret sauce, so to speak. And so I wish that I had like a formula to give you, but it's not as simple as a formula. It is lit, it's really led by our instincts in lots of ways, and also some guiding principles. And the guiding principle is that a smaller portfolio is easier to manage than a bigger portfolio. That's a really simple formula. You will get more from your property manager if they have less on their plate. These are like really simple, straightforward principles that I think every management company should be keeping in mind. It's a cultural choice that has arisen here in British Columbia that requires property managers to manage an entire portfolio of properties. That's not something that we should take for granted forever. In other jurisdictions, it's not uncommon for a property manager to manage a single building or maybe two buildings within a small portfolio. And I don't think that it would be a secret to any of our clients just how much more you would get out of an individual if you were their only client, if you weren't one of 8 or 12 or 14 or 16 properties. So for us, pricing is the main mechanism by which we control the size of our portfolio, which we call our capacity. At any given time, protecting our capacity is probably like our number one job as a management team, to make sure that our team are not feeling overwhelmed or overburdened by the number of clients that they've got or the demands of those clients. And so it's this constant process of evaluating, does this individual have too much? And then more broadly, is our portfolio too much? Many management companies will just chase volume. They'll just say, hey, we'll get as many into the boat as we can. We're going to lose some to attrition. We're going to lose some to terminations. We're going to lose some here and there and the other, in a number of different ways. For us, we're basically constantly saying no to prospective clients. The ones that we have conversations with, we're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing us. The labor equation is so skewed right now that we are protective of our staff. And so yeah, we keep our prices high, excuse me, to make sure that we can keep those portfolio sizes relatively small.
That's a really interesting tactical decision on your part. I don't know if I've heard that very commonly from others who I think aspire to, growth at any cost. And you seem to be trying to form a bit better balance, and as a result, you've got much lower turnover than industry average, both in terms of your managers and in terms of the buildings that you manage. And that's quite unique.
Yeah, I think the proof is sort of in the pudding. I didn't go to business school, so maybe it's a fault on my part. But I've long believed that the equation sort of feeds into itself and becomes self-sustaining over time. That if you treat your staff really, really well, they will stick with you. That means your clients will stick with you because they're not seeing turnover of their staff. Your clients will therefore see better value in your services. Will increase the value of the contract to incentivize the property manager to stick around to keep their portfolio size small and just keep going. And so that's what I mean when I say that we're much more interested in long-term relationships than in growth or volume.
Fantastic. And in terms of what goes on behind the scenes, the stuff that your clients don't see, how does that play out within your team?
Yeah, well, in our industry, there's an obligation on the managing broker. That's me in the formal sense to provide active and ongoing support to property managers. In practice, we've got several broker level licensees within our company and myself, and we pride ourselves in the ongoing support that we offer to our staff, whether it's a weekly team meeting check-in or ongoing series of lunch and learn seminars, or just email bulletins going out to staff with the latest case law, explaining point by point. Here's how you need to construct your workflow around this specific issue. Let's say it's chargebacks, for example. Where case law has evolved to a point where you need to cross every T and dot every I. So we are robust when it comes to providing templates, notices, just giving PMs the tools that they need so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time a new issue comes up.
Right.
Having an open door policy to questions, and so this comes back to what I mentioned earlier about having a really senior team. Hey, if Jason isn't in the office on any given day, guess what? You still have 200 plus years of collective strata management experience in the office between the 6 or 7 other people who are there that day. So go ask somebody else, and that really does feed onto itself. The team has become so self-sufficient over the years by virtue of being a really senior and experienced team.
That's fantastic. When you do bring on someone who's earlier in their career, how do you bring them up to speed? How do you kind of bring them into the fold and get them to understand the way that you approach the business that might be different from where they cut their teeth?
Yeah, my favorite, well, one of my favorite stories to tell in this job is about the employee that we've got now, who started as our receptionist about 15 years ago, and then moved into our administration department, and quickly developed and showed an aptitude for strata management. And shortly after spending some time in admin, became a licensed property manager, and now, I would argue, one of the best property managers in the entire city. And that's a great path that anybody
Fantastic.
who is really motivated could follow, to start on the ground floor and work your way up, so to speak, in a business like ours. There's lots of opportunity. Every management company is hungry for the right individuals to join. It's no secret that there's a shortage of property managers. Everybody's on the hunt, and everybody's looking for the most senior and experienced of professional property managers. But guess what? There's a finite number of those. So the industry as a whole needs to get better at bringing juniors in and training them up, and that's an area of increasing focus for us as well, to be able to bring in truly green candidates and help them evolve their careers. But like I said, we've got some experience there, and it's a really personally satisfying approach to take as well, to like watch somebody's career develop over time. And I'd encourage every business owner to think of it that way, of like, what you want your legacy to be, years down the road after you've retired. And don't you want a handful of people that you can say, oh yeah, I watched them start at the ground floor, and now they're running the place.
I love that story. That's great. Um, let's talk a little bit about how technology is evolving and helping you guys do more um, with the constraints that we've already talked about.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, the world's changing. What's there to say, really? The industry, we're highly regulated, is something that I think is important to remember. So change is challenging in a lot of ways. So I could give you a whole bunch of examples, but a really easy one is, yeah, hey, why don't you email all of these documents out to owners instead of sending it in paper, because we don't want paper, we don't want to waste. very sympathetic to this. I don't. It's not like I like paper, and it's not like I like
Yeah,
waste either. But there are legislated and regulatory barriers to implementing technological solutions to some of the problems that we face. So any technology needs to be really deeply considered, which is something that we've taken to heart at StrataWest, and we're working to build a sort of a custom solution that mirrors our workflows, which we know to be very rigorously compliant with the Strata Property Act and the Real Estate Services Act and the Privacy Act and the Limitations Act and so on and so forth. Like, this is how complicated these things are. And so we've taken quite a conservative approach, but we also believe that that's appropriate because systems matter. Systems and people matter more than technology does.
yeah,
However, we're at an inflection point, I believe, and that inflection point is here right now, where the technology uh, exists to replace existing systems. And so, like, we're really motivated right now to leverage the tools that are increasingly available, whether it's AI or databases, to be able to communicate more effectively with our clients, to be able to receive feedback more effectively, and probably from an operational perspective of most importance to us as a company, to reduce the amount of administrative burden that's required of us. I don't mind saying, and this is it might sound like a little bit of a complaint, but it won't be a secret to any of our clients. In the 20 years that I've been doing this job, the amount of work that has been downloaded to strata corporations by other levels of government, by legislation, by the courts, by evolving building practices, by the culture of our province and of the Lower Mainland, all these things have just led to a dramatically increased workload for property managers and property management firms. Um, and so to have some of that come off by way of automation, it's just necessary. It just has to
yeah.
happen. And so that's the direction that we're going right now, to try and find the ways that our clients won't even notice that we've made these changes, that we've improved our systems, and a lot of that is going to appear in the back end, with only just minor things changing for our clients, and all of them to their benefit.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know how quickly the AI scene has been evolving and what that means for getting answers to fairly general questions that consume a strata manager's day but aren't really where they add their value. So, allowing any one of the 300 residents of a particular strata community to get the answer that they need on which barbecue they're allowed to have or pets and all of those things, I think is a pretty obvious evolution of the industry, thanks to improving technology and better systems.
Very much so. Yeah, that barbecue is such a great example, because there's some value in picking up the phone and calling your management company and asking to be put through to Jason, and speaking with Jason and asking Jason, hey, I'm going out barbecue shopping. Am I allowed to have a charcoal barbecue on my deck? And then hearing from Jason, oh, let me check your bylaws. The answer is no. It says that only propane and natural gas is permitted. There's some value in that. Like, again, being a people first company, I see very, very real value, and I see the way that our society has changed to discount that value, to make it so that people just want the answer right away. So we're doing our best to try and marry those two feelings, I guess. One is, like, some people just want convenience, they just want ease of access, they just want the answer. But some people like to call, and we still employ a person to sit at our reception desk to answer the phone, to be that personal point of contact for our callers. And that's a point of pride for us, because we really do value that, like, that soft touch.
I appreciate that. I do. I know that if I was at the store and looking at barbecues and I just wanted to know, the instant answer will be valuable. And there are other circumstances where somebody might want that personal touch. So it's nice that you're going to be able to cater to both, and are adopting new and exciting technologies. And I guess that really does take us to the future. And I want to back up from technology and just talk about the industry. You've been in this industry 20 years. You've been running StrataWest for 15 years. Where do you see the puck going, if you will?
I see more and more consolidation occurring. The movement of large corporations into this sector is has been a big part of the last probably dozen or well 12 to 15 years or so. There's been a significant amount of consolidation, and that's because it is challenging to do this job efficiently. There's also, as we've talked about, the aging nature of the workforce, and so it's not just strata managers that are aging, but managing brokers and owners of companies that are aging and looking at exit strategies. And so, yeah, we're starting to see, or we are seeing more and more consolidation under large corporations. But in my mind, that also increases the opportunity for smaller firms like ours, where the opportunity is to speak to homeowners who don't really want a more cookie cutter approach to their service, who want something a little bit more hands-on and attentive. It does cost more to be more personal than technology based, and that's a trade-off that many clients are happy to make. There's no shortage of business to go around, so I think that there's room for both approaches in our industry. The approach of automation and technology and a dashboard and a portal only, that's going to work for some strata corporations. I'm under no illusions about that. For those that don't, they're going to want to have access to senior property managers that they can pay maybe on an hourly basis going forward. I see that as a potential future
Yeah.
for our industry. Certainly a lot more in the way of getting rid of what I like to call grunt work, stealing and stuffing envelopes, standing at a photocopier, even things like handing out keys, right? Like we've seen
Right.
technology develop that allows for smartphones to act as keys. And so, we see the technology becoming more and more a part of how we do our job, everything from drone inspections to security systems and CCTV. There's a lot of growth and a lot of development. It's going to change really, really quickly over the next couple of years as AI really makes its impact known to us. There's a great deal of work that us and all property management companies already do that could be automated. There's a great deal of that, so it's ripe for it, and I'm excited about the future, but I'm also a little bit nervous about how to navigate it all. And I'm just going to take the same approach that we've taken to everything else, which is like we're going to be a genuine company that approaches each issue with a hands-on attitude, wants to work with our clients and our staff, and take the same approach as we always have done, and I think it's going to let us be really successful.
Fantastic. I'm going to take just a couple of the questions because we have gone on that have come in here. You've covered some of the topics that have come up from users already. Uh, what do you wish every strata council owner or council understood about the job of strata manager?
I wish everyone understood that they're paying to be in a portfolio of properties. I mentioned this earlier, but it's definitely something that it's just lost.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a great understanding of that, and especially because there's not insight into how it can be elsewhere. Whether you're in Ontario or Texas or Florida, the culture is quite different. And here, you are 1/8 at best, usually, of someone's portfolio. That
I
means you
think
get 1/8 of their time.
this is a huge distinction, and I don't think many people are going to understand this, but I'm going to name a known example from an HOA in California where they pay for a single manager for their complex, dedicated, one person. It costs them 150,000 US dollars a year. This is a significant investment by that community. It's not a small community, but you pay a lot for that direct property management relationship. And you're right. You've done really, really well to cover the fact that you are in a portfolio, and this is not someone's full dedicated bandwidth to you and your community. Um, I got one more question for you before we wrap, Jason. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing about the strata industry, what do you wish that was? What would you wave the wand at?
Um, yeah, I'd give more tools to Strata Council members to understand the complexity of the job that they're doing. They're typically responsible for an asset that's worth tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. And strata council members, they get elected by their neighbors as lay people, without any training or meaningful support from third parties other than the management company.
Yeah.
There's a few industry associations that try and help strata councils out here and there, and they
Yeah.
do real, in my mind, they do really important work. You can see in particular Tony's work in CHOA or CCI. You'll see the newspaper articles here and there.
Yeah.
But by and large, strata council members, they get thrown into this, and boy, oh boy, do I have my sympathy for that. All of a sudden, you're expected to mediate personality disputes between neighbors, human resources issues with staff members on site,
Mhm.
building maintenance concerns, roofs caving in, or a fire that is several $1 million worth of value, and all of a sudden, you just got elected to council. I'd give a lot more resources and support to strata council members. I think the entire industry would benefit from that.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of talk going on about that now. I think that there's a lot more that could be done to help empower and educate the strata council members who are on, and to create that higher level of engagement within communities, so that those are not short to come by. I know that with many changes, that's become a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on to have a chat about this. Congratulations on what you've built at StrataWest.
Thank you.
Um, we're going to have a friend of ours on the show next week. We're going to get joined by Sean Jordan, president of Strata Press, to talk about streamlining your council's workload. So again, better tools, if not the education component yet, for those strata councils who really do need a bit more to work with when they're thrown into something new. So thank you very much for joining us, Jason.
My pleasure.